Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a seriously fascinating journey into the past to decode this incredible ancient monastic text. Now, at first glance, you might think a list of rules for making a simple garment would be, well, kind of dry. But stick with me here, because we're going to transform this historical document into a completely captivating map of human psychology, algorithms, and material attachment. Okay, let's dive into this and uncover the hidden structure behind what's known as the Cathena robe.
To really get this text, we got to drop right into the historical moment. Just picture the scene. These traveling monks had just arrived after a long, genuinely exhausting journey. And they're greeted by the Buddha with this very specific, rhythmic series of questions. Are you bearing well? Are you satisfied? Are you comfortable? Are you not lacking in food? Are you not exhausted by the road? It's a profoundly human check-in, right? This isn't some abstract philosophy. This is a leader looking at a group of completely burnt-out people and asking about their physical well-being. This simple, compassionate interaction sets the stage for literally everything that follows.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the origins and the muddy monks, then look at managing the Cathena and the 6 minds of making. After that, we'll hit the rules of validity and finish up with the absolutely mind-bending 166 ways to let go.
Okay, Section 1, the muddy monks, the origins of the Cathena.
Before we get all these complex rules, there's just a really practical, physical problem. The source text tells us how these monks had just wrapped up a massive 3-month rainy season retreat. They traveled to see the Buddha, but the roads were completely flooded out. So they arrived drenched, covered head to toe in mud, and just physically exhausted by the elements. Seeing this intense physical struggle, the Buddha responds with pure, practical compassion. He establishes the Catena ritual. This allowed the monastic community to receive and create a special communal robe to replace their ruined clothes. The whole complex system we're about to look at, it all stems from this one single moment of addressing basic human discomfort.
Moving on to Section 2, managing the Cathena, qualifications.
So, the communal robe is allowed, but now a huge question emerges. Who actually gets to manage the thing? This was a highly prized communal offering, so the administrator had to be chosen super carefully. In almost any ancient or, honestly, modern hierarchy, you just hand it to the oldest, the most senior, or the most powerful person in the room. But not here. No way. The text explicitly disqualifies anyone driven by desire, anger, fear, or ignorance. You are only qualified to manage the Catena if you're completely free from those 4 states and you fully know the rules. This ancient code prioritized strict emotional regulation over simple seniority. You literally had to be a master of your own psychology just to manage the community's property.
All right, Section 3, 6 minds of making, the mindfulness matrix.
This brings us to the actual physical creation of the robe, and this is where the text brilliantly connects physical labor right to mental presence. They lay out 6 highly specific physical steps to create this garment. Step 1, washing. Step 2, dyeing. Step 3 is cutting. Step 4 is basting. Step 5, sewing. And finally, Step 6, measuring. But listen, these aren't just basic instructions for a tailor. The text insists that every single one of these actions demands an active, highly specific state of mindfulness. You absolutely cannot just go through the motions on autopilot here.
Because during every single one of those 6 steps, literally while washing, while cutting, while sewing, the monk making the robe has to actively hold this specific thought in their mind. With this cloth, I make the Cathena robe to receive. The crucial point is that losing this unified intention at any step along the way actually constitutes a formal offense. Let that sink in. You could sew the garment perfectly, flawlessly, but if your mind wanders, the whole creation is invalid. It turns a basic everyday chore into an ultimate exercise in continuous mindfulness. It's like the architecture of the mind is just as important as the architecture of the cloth.
Which brings us to Section 4, rules of validity, the legal boundaries.
So once the robe is made, the text shifts gears into a rapid-fire legal framework, and they leave 0 room for ambiguity. It's incredibly rigorous. A valid robe can be made from emergency cloth, new cloth, or even patched cloth, as long as it's properly cut and pure. But look at that invalid list. It's strict. It cannot be made of rotten cloth, it can't be kept overnight before completion, it cannot be dyed a specific saffron color, it can't be uncut, and it cannot be undersized. They basically closed every possible loophole. It prevents any corruption of the ritual by defining exactly what the physical object must be, ensuring the whole thing remains pure and equitable for everyone involved.
And finally, Section 5, 166 ways to let go, the algorithm of attachment. We've arrived at the final and frankly the most massive portion of the text.
We've established how to make the robe, we know what makes it valid, but now they have to solve the absolute hardest psychological problem. How do you let go of it? The text frames relinquishing the robe, officially breaking your attachment to it, around 8 foundational scenarios. Things like the robe is finished, you're deciding to leave the boundary, or maybe you just lose the cloth. These are the base conditions, basically the root variables in our ancient flowchart of human psychology, but they definitely don't stop with just 8 general ideas. They combine them.
Taking those base variables, intentions, locations, the physical status of the cloth, the source text exhaustively calculates every single distinct permutation. It maps out exactly 166 ways for a monk's attachment to the single object to officially end. 166. It is just a staggering level of detail.
Let's actually look at how this ancient matrix functions, because you can read it almost like a mathematical equation. They set up columns of variables. Intent to return, meaning does the monk plan to come back? Physical location, are they inside or outside the monastery? And cloth status, is it finished, is it lost? So, for example, row 1, if a monk leaves with no intent to return, is outside the boundary, and the cloth is finished, the result is attachment relinquished. Row 2, even if a monk will return but they're outside the boundary and the cloth gets lost, result, attachment relinquished. The text runs through literally every if-then scenario imaginable. It's an exhaustive algorithm perfectly designed to definitively sever the psychological tie to a material possession.
Now, if you're thinking, come on, we're just applying modern tech words like algorithm or matrix to something that wasn't meant to be read that way, check this out. At the very end of the manuscript, the text explicitly tallies its own math. 2 6s, 6 20s, double 12s, 2 5s, totaling 166. The compilers of this ancient code were highly intentional. They wanted a perfectly watertight, logically sound system to manage human expectations and attachments, and they checked their work.
So what starts as a story about muddy roads and a simple piece of emergency clothing totally evolves into this masterclass in ancient psychology. It shows us that managing material objects actually requires managing the mind itself through emotional regulation, unified focus during creation, and this crazy mathematical approach to letting go. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to think about. If it took this ancient code 166 distinct permutations to map the psychological attachment to just one simple piece of cloth, how many unseen, complex rules are currently governing your material attachments today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the structure of the things around you.